Hello everybody, we're back at it again with hajimari. This time I don't think I'm going to be doing any kind of grinding or any gameplay at all, or any progress, leveling, etc. I'm not going to go for a new game plus. I'm just going to hang out and chill. I don't have any goals for the stream, just do some of the side stories as the title says. Yeah, just do the side stories. Watch my characters, watch the characters chill. Are they having tea time in here? They're having tea time in here. I thought this place is supposed to fall apart, or maybe it's just the extension. Maybe it's just the extension, level 0, that's supposed to be falling apart, not the TRC itself. Okay, so we can hang out here for forever. And all of their experience isn't really gone. I mean, they're still going to be able to remember it through their dreams, as Zazot said. Yeah, I wonder if they're definitely gonna remember everything that happened here. But if not, that's fine too. You're a good girl, Lapis. Oh no, they're really gonna split? I thought... Is Nadia and Swin just gonna be like... Travel with Lapis and Rufus for a little bit, and then they're gonna split and end up in Kuro too. I guess. Because Lapis's brother is there. What's the crew doing? Anyways, I'm not going to talk to everybody. I'm just going to jump into this side story. Wait a minute, let me talk to my girls. Of course, Duvley. Wait, what's at the end of Kuro? If he was leaving at the end of Kuro, would that mean that she's going to Le Mans? If she's going to Le Mans, then that would mean she's gonna show up again eventually in Kuro, when shit goes to shit. Wait, Aurelia, right? Is bright. It's the last name of the people. The Sky family. That smile that Victor does right there is very nice. He's finally relaxed after all the shit that he's been through in the entirety of Cold Steel. Mans can finally relax. And not just relax, I mean, at the end of, well, it was implied in Kuro that he'd be able to get his arms back. Probably be able to get, like, function in all of his digits on his hands. Let's see what's in this. The extra episode. Featuring Ren. Don't care about that shit. Where's Ren, actually? She's gonna be the main heroine of the story, and I know it because it's, heavily implied at the beginning of Kuro, well, all throughout the entirety of Kuro, between Ren and Van's interactions. Where is Ren? Downstairs, I guess. Just say hi real quick. Yeah, she'd leave with her family, I guess. I know. That is so funny. Funny you say that. Yo, what's the timeline? Grandpa's in Grandpa George? Oh, okay. Wait, Grandpa. How about Joshua? Levy. Oh yeah, one of the things that I wanted to complain about is how... Well, the only thing that I can really complain about in Kuro is how Kasim doesn't have that gravitas that comes with all of the mentor powerful figures in each of the Trails games. Like in Sky, we had Levy and Cassius, right? As one of the mentors, or as like the barrier to get over eventually, or somebody who's typically powerful, like the end goal for the heroes, the main heroes. And then in Crossbell, it's Arios. Though at some point I believe SSS has already surpassed them. And then in Cold Steel, there's a lot of them actually. It's I want to say Victor, just because of how much because of the role that he played in handling Reen's ogre powers. And then McBurn. McBurn is kind of like a figurehead, or like a mentor figure. How do you say this? Like a powerful, somebody who's like a barrier to get over eventually. I don't know what a better choice of word for that is, but in a sense, somebody that's like somebody that was like Cassius and Levy, as they were to Estelle and Joshua, if you get what I mean. But then for SSS, they've already surpassed Arios for Cold Steel. There's McBurn, Victor, and then eventually it was Aurelia. Even though McBurn is kind of like a wild card, he's usually on the enemy team though, but he's kind of a wild card. And then in Kuro, there's Shizuna and Kasim. Shizuna has that. Shizuna has that gravitas that all of their predecessor powerful figure, quote in quotes. But Kasim does not have that gravitas to him. It's probably because of his goofy ass weapon. I would attribute it to that. Anyways, what the fuck am I talking about? Let's start this. The reason that I'm streaming this part is because I just want to see what my reaction to this is. I've already been there. Not so distant. Who knows? I knew it. It writes itself. Wait, what? Another hot spring. That girl's ordinary school life. It's gotta be talking about Ren. We've been there. Wait, what year is it currently? I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Even among all those bright youths, one stood out, a young woman with a ribbon tied up in her long violet hair. Now 17 years old, she'd grown to have a very beautiful feminine physique. Despite her womanly charm, she maintained a cute youthful face, fascinating combination that drew all eyes towards her. That's a girl! That's a girl! Ren. Wait, how old is she right now? What? That guy in the back doing the signature looking back pose. The GF looking back pose. I don't know what you call that meme. Wait, how old is Ren? Let me just Google this real quick. Ren Bright. She's 15 during the... Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So she's 15 during the events of Crossbell, CS4 and Crossbell. I mean, CS4 and Hajimari. Ren Bright, our girl of all time, an exchange student from Liberal's esteemed Genis Royal Academy. Enrolling for the spring semester, she attends Aramis High School as a second-year student. Noted as a prodigy from her youth, even holding numerous degrees and PhDs, it was obvious that she wasn't in attendance merely to attain a high school level education. We know what she's here about. We know what she's in Calvert for. She's here for the combat. Never mind. Oh yeah. In truth, she simply wanted a cover that would allow her to freely explore the Republic and perhaps also engage in some secret training. During her time at Genis Royal Academy, she'd already ascertained that the front of a student was perfect for such a task. They naturally faced some restrictions, but on the whole, the world was rather kind to students. Thus, with this goal in mind, Ren had resolved to stand out as little as possible in her time as a student of Aramis. Aramis, I don't know how you pronounce that properly. She held that she should act graceful yet humble. And yet, a fine morning, Miss Bright. Who said that? Yeah. It's from Bright in the flesh. It's a look over there. That girl's really She's so hot, not to mention insanely smart. Who's this horn dog? Get the fuck away from Ren. Each student that she passed had a greeting to give or something to say. She was looked upon with both envy and admiration alike. She was stunning, of course, but she became even more of a celebrity after a teacher leaked that she'd managed to perfect scores on her entrance exam. All this fame merely 1 month after coming to Aramis. Regardless of, I had like an extra comment, a side comment to this. Regardless of what was actually meant by it, Ren took all these comments as a shower of praise, though of course many were not so well intentioned. Yeah, the tendency in high school is that if you're a new kid, you get a little bit of extra attention from I don't know if it's the same for everybody else, but if you're a new kid, people that grew up in the area, people that's been going to schools, that's been going to the same school, let's say that, well, they already know each other ever since for a long, especially small schools. Everybody in the same grade, or maybe even everybody in the same school already know each other, depending on the size of the school. So if you're a new kid, you have that you have that, like, new kids command attention to them for some reason. So people would want to get to know you. So I'm not surprised. It's a normal tendency that happens in high school. That was like, God, that was a lifetime ago for me. More than a lifetime. Alright. Not only was she an exchange student, but she was one who had attained such popularity in less than a month. Naturally, there would be a number of students who would look upon her with jealousy and distaste. Even on this fine April morning, there were those who stayed away from her, watching from the shadows as she exchanged greetings with other students, spewing complaints and slander about the young woman. Gossip. Ren had no clubs or other such activities to be going to, thus after the day's classes had all ended, she took her time tidying up her bag and rising from her seat. Ah, Ren Bright, would you mind if we chatted for a bit? Who said this? There alongside his entourage of lackeys, a young man called out to Ren. Oh, I know this guy. If I recall correctly, Van got rid of this dude. I'm not particularly busy. What would you like to discuss, Griffith? Ren said. As she groaned outwardly, Ren chose to likewise demonstrate that her heart had become that of a young woman by taking extra care to only refer to herself in the first person. Oh, right. Of course, this was also part of her graceful yet humble manner, because Ren used to refer to herself in third person. Is that the right word? Third person? I was wondering if you'd care to have dinner with me. In order to strengthen our friendship, of course. Of course. I've already reserved us a table at a fine restaurant. What restaurant was it? I know the area, in the Republic, in the Calvert, in the capital. This young man was Ronald Griffith, and he adorned himself with a polite and gentlemanly smile as he extended the invitation to Ren. There were many boys at the school who desired nothing more than a date with Ren, yet each time she would refuse, coming up with an excuse in order to be polite. This time was no exception. I'm terribly sorry, Griffith, but I've already made plans for tonight. Perhaps we could meet to chat over some tea at a later date. Watch out for our tea parties. Normally, the boy would understand and give up at this point. However, it seemed this time was an exception. Yes, that's fine, but I see you're not in a rush. Truly, there's an important matter I'd like to discuss with you. How about if we go right now? Ren would have been lying if she'd said she wasn't a bit intrigued by Ronald's suspicious smile. An important matter. It's a shame, but I really do have prior obligations tonight. I can't go out for dinner. Though I do have a bit of time right now. Can we talk about it here? I see. That really is a shame. Though his words carried only disappointment, frustration was written all over Ronald's face. It was clear that he hadn't planned for things to go like this. Though in an instant, he once again hid his frustration, returning to his polite smile and continuing. Well, that's fine. It seems that everyone who this doesn't involve has already left. Forgot how to read for a second. He looked around as he said this. Indeed, the only people who remained in the classroom were Ren, Ronald, and his entourage. All the other students were already heading home or hurrying to their clubs. Perhaps they had left earlier than usual, not wanting to get involved with whatever Ronald was scheming. Ronald took one more step towards Ren before speaking once more. Bright, you're an exchange student all the way from Liberal. From what I've heard, you coming to Calvert has nothing to do with your family's circumstances or moving or anything else of the sort. You've come purely to study at Aramis. Truly, I admire your craving for knowledge, that true intellectual spirit. His tone becoming a bit dramatic, Ronald continued. However, I'm worried for your well-being, sweet Bright. Surely living all alone in a foreign country is a frightening experience. Oh, Ronald, if only you knew. You've no one to rely on, yet surely you'll have to go through all sorts of hardships all on your own. Therefore, I'd begun to think, perhaps you need a benefactor, a guardian even. You'd think? Hearing Ronald's daring proclamation, Ren narrowed her eyes. I see, so you wish to invite me into your little clique. Ronald beamed. His father was a member of the Republican Congress, thus Ronald himself also held some influence. Using that influence, Ronald had built up a small faction of his own, and had now become the primary candidate for the student council election that was to be held in a few weeks. We know how that ends. Surely if he could bring Ren, the most popular girl in school, into his faction, then his victory would be all but assured. Trust me, Bright, this is a prime opportunity for you as well. Come under my wing and the rest of your school life will be a breeze. Given that you're an exchange student, your position at the school will differ greatly depending on whether or not you have some protection. Why would you need protection if, well, this isn't some prison? Anyways, Ren couldn't help but think that it really was a prime opportunity. If she entered a well-positioned group, gathering information from within the school would become a much easier task. Not to mention that Ronald's father was a congressman. If she could make a connection, she'd have a much easier time operating in general. Ronald, without even knowing Ren's true motives, had granted her an almost perfectly appealing offer. Ren returned Ronald's polite smile and said in a light voice, My apologies, but I've no interest in such an offer. Wrecked, she refused bluntly. Ronald's eyebrows twitched along with a smile. His entire entourage also seemed upset. Clearly, this wasn't the answer they'd anticipated. Just a moment, Bright. Think about it. Surely someone as smart as you should realize just how meritorious such an offer is. Are you really okay with just letting it slip away? You'll surely come to regret it. Ronald's tone became much harsher. His entourage, which had merely been standing back calmly up to now, suddenly came forward to intimidate Ren. Yet even in the face of this, Ren remained as calm as ever. It's certainly an appealing offer. In fact, I'd even be happy to help someone win the election. But well, that'd be on the sole condition that the one I'm helping isn't you. Wrecked. Well, what the hell did Jesus say? Suddenly provoked, Ronald's voice was filled with rage, yet Ren deflected his anger with a calm expression. Come now, don't you want to know my reason, Griffith? I know just who it was. I know just who it was that was saying all that filth about me this morning. It was you and your lackeys all behind my back. Oh, but don't think I've only just noticed today. You and your little friends have always been regurgitating such drivel, even since before the liberal arts festival. Ronald and his group were all flustered by this accusation. Ren took their failure to respond as a silent recognition of the truth and continued speaking. Perhaps what you're trying here isn't wrong. I know that I've been standing out a bit too much recently, and I've aimed to avoid that myself. I think it's a brilliant strategy to try and turn the biggest threat to your faction into your ally, but such a strategy will never work if that threat notices your hostility towards them. Therefore, if I were to team up with such unskilled people who'd make such an elementary mistake, I'm sure I'd grow bored. Haha. Friend simply gave a sigh and a shrug, but Ronald was quivering with anger. Well then, everyone, I hope you have a good evening. Gokigenyo, he probably said. While Ronald continued to frantically think of a retort, Ren simply ignored him and his friends, gracefully exiting the classroom past them. When did she meet Van? But Mom won't stop using Aga to test everything she can think of. He was completely exhausted this time. Oh, she's probably Zoom calling Tita. We got a ton of great data thanks to his sacrifice, but still. I'm glad to hear that Auntie Erica's as energetic as ever. That's cute. She calls Erica her auntie. That night, Ren was alone in her dorm room, yet she was entirely wrapped up in her remote conversation with Tita. Aw, they're so cute. Ren's not immune to, Ren has a type when it comes to blondies. Still though, that's as far as your stories will with him ever go. I'd love if you two would start acting a bit more like a proper hopeless couple like my dear brother and sister. God damn it, Ren. God damn it. Well, we're still, but next week he promised to go out with. God damn it! Who's writing this shit? Who's fucking writing this shit? I thought we were over this in Kuro. Fuck. Mama, I'm happy to hear that. I'm looking forward to you becoming a proper adult. Could you not? God damn it, why are they doing this again? Can't even look at Tita and not be like disgusted anymore. Anyways, while Ren had begun studying abroad in Calvert, Tita had just graduated from Thor's and was returning to Liberal. The two friends were in unfortunately different positions. Both feeling lonely without the other, they decided to chat like this at least once a week. That's cute. That's super cute. It had become a fun event to look forward to for the both of them, where they could talk about their new lives in different places and the fruits of their own research and investigations. And about that trouble between the Epstein Foundation and Vern, it seems that soon they may have a lawsuit on their hands. Oh, I really hope things don't come to that. Both friends, though separated by many arcs, furrowed their brows in unison. Recently, the two had no shortage of troubles, thanks to Calvert's very own Vern Company. Cute. At least Ren still has her friends. T.O. CF, Reinford, Epstein, and Vern. Wait, who's that? Is that the fucking goddess? Wait, what? Who owns that? Let me look that up. Oh no, that's grandma. Never mind. That's grandma. What's his name's grandma? Yeah, Professor Erica. Katoru is grandma. Last year, after the situation around Crossbell's re-independence calmed down and the dust had settled, Professor Erica, as a representative of ZCF, had invited the Verne Company to join the new West Zemuria Technology Federation. However, the response was, as Erica had somewhat anticipated, a refusal. ZCF. Oh, liberal. Just when Erica and the other members of the Technological Union began making preparations to win Verne over, an incident occurred that tore any chances of unity to shreds. The Verne Company announced its independent development of the next generation of combat ordnance, meaning that while up until they had been co-developing it in conjunction with the Epstein Foundation, Verne removed the Epstein Foundation from the system and began development on their own. It's kind of funny that Falcom... Anyways, wait. Ever since the Orbal Revolution, Epstein had lended its expertise to any country that had wished it. It's kind of funny that Falcom went out of their way to establish this point. Since they're using new gameplay mechanics, they went out of their way to make a story that they're changing their gameplay mechanics. The Epstein Foundation had been foundational to the development of all combat ordnance, being considered the leading organization of the technology up until this point. For example, before the Great War, they'd worked alongside the Rhineford Group to develop the Arcus and Arcus II, never being separated from the project. It's for that reason that such an unprecedented announcement rocked the entire technological world. Somebody message me. Who messaged me? Hello? Anyways, naturally the Epstein Foundation, which had been completely removed from the project without their consent, was greatly displeased. Eli audiobooks is what I should probably start my own audiobooks. Maybe when I retire, I'm gonna do this as a side job. A lot of books out there, but I don't think people that read audiobooks is gonna have that job anymore in the future, because I feel like people are starting to do voice banks for themselves. Like specific voice actors are making voice banks. People are probably just gonna use that technology to like read audiobooks. Though I don't think... Yeah, no, I don't think... because being able to read a book with a good reader adds to the flair of the book. If people are using a voice bank, I don't think it would translate that well. It wouldn't be the same experience as having a dedicated reader for an audiobook. I don't know how people with voice banks are gonna get past that hurdle of being able to put life in their reading. Something like that. Anyways, conjecture. It was a situation that deeply concerned their rights as a company, as well as threatened their long-standing position as the hegemon of the industry. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Hegemon? Pokemon? Digimon? After a number of fruitless attempts at negotiating, it seemed that things would be coming to a head in a large-scale international lawsuit. However, looking at where things stand now, I honestly think that Verne has the upper hand going into the trial. It had been announced that this new 6th generation combat ordnance would be vastly different from the existing Ramda units, thus constituting a new technological standard. Sounds like every facet of the ordnance will incorporate some sort of unique feature or new technology. It's even rumored to have some features that won't be known to the public. I know all about this. What was it called again? I forgot already. It's been a while since I've last touched Kuro. Something shards. Anyways, I'm really interested in those, but what are they thinking proceeding into such territory without the foundation? I don't even know who's talking right now. Is it Ren or Tita? I guess Vern is pouring all of their resources into arms development at the behest of the Republic's government, but still. Yes, it's likely that they're planning some sort of large-scale company overhaul. On the surface, they're claiming that they're actually scaling back their military, but there's no doubt that it's merely a cover to replace. To replace existing resources with much stronger ones. Following the Great War, the Empire was forced to, as per the terms of the peace treaty, reduce their military to around the size of the Republic's. However, given those circumstances, if the Republic were to hypothetically undergo a large-scale weapons upgrade, the balance of power would be tilted once more. There are quite a few interesting pieces moving in the shadows. I'd rather like to go to Vern's home city and ascertain the situation with my own eyes. I don't have 3 viewers right now. What? Where'd y'all come from? Anyways. And there's still no information coming out about Professor Hamilton, I assume. Hamilton? No, never mind. It's Hamilton who's Katoru's grandma. Yeah, it sounds like he's still... Wait, no, never mind. What? Who the fuck's Hamilton then? Sounds like he's still working on his research in Eastern Zemuria, but each time never mind, who's Hamilton? Is he one of the disciples? I forgot who the fuck. Anyway, each time Grandpa and Mom try to contact him, they get nothing in response. While communications network likely still haven't been established where he is, nothing we can do about that. Though if he's anywhere near as smart as the rest of the disciples, it'd be rather relieving to get his help. Ahaha, it sure would. Lately, we've been hearing some pretty disturbing rumors coming out of those private military companies. Kasim? I wonder if things would still be turning out like this had Hamilton remained as an advisor to the Vern Company. The topic had slowly started to bring down Tita's spirits. In the past year, Western Zemuria had once more experienced the stability it hadn't felt in some time, finally enjoying peace and prosperity. However, one couldn't shake the feeling that this peace had been built on a foundation of thin ice. A great number of concerns had begun to arise, especially in the rapidly evolving field of technology. It's probably caused by a singularity. No matter how much we brood over this, nothing will change. For now, we just need to do all we can from our present positions. That's why I'm here in the Republic, and that's why you're giving it your all over there. Also, it's Ren that's talking right now. Right now, we have a mountain of problems to sort through, but I don't think there's any reasons to be overly pessimistic. Am I wrong? It's really cute that Ren is the optimist of the two now. Ren's the optimist of Ren and Tita. Ren, hehehe. No, you're right. Thanks. Where's Van? They continued to chat late into the night to the point where neither even noticed it had already passed midnight. It's already this late. I guess I should get going. See you later, Ren. Yes, have a good night, Tita. Yep, have a good night. At that moment, it seemed that Tita had suddenly remembered something and thus called out to Ren before she could end their communications. Oh yeah, before we met up, Big Sis told me to ask whether you were doing well in school or not. I'll make sure to contact Estelle and the others regularly, yet they're still this worried about me. Great. That's cute. For but a moment, Ren remembered her encounter with Ronald after class, but decided it was a minor incident and waved it aside. I'm doing splendidly. There's nothing to be worried about. Got it. She also told me to tell you, if you're ever getting bullied at school, let us know and we'll rush right over. That Estelle, she's still so overprotective. She should know there's no need. No, it's not that. I think she said something like, I'd be worried for the life of the bully. Dot. Her face adorned with shock. Ren was at a loss for words. Tita couldn't help but laugh seeing her friend make such a face. These two are so cute. That really is the sort of thing that she should be worried about. It's rather rude, don't you think? Even if something like that were to happen, I wouldn't do anything too terrible. I'm not quite the same as I was as a child. Well, back then you probably would have. I need to replay SC just for this. I'm a young lady now, Tita. It's better to handle most situations with dignity and forgiveness. Additionally, I'm aiming to lay as low as possible while at the school. I don't really know how possible it is for you to lie low, Ren. Anyways, I guess we really should be going now. Oh yeah, but if you happen to run across Zin, tell him we all miss him. That she will. You play through the entirety of Kuro, we know Ren's gonna run into Zin. She even plays a support for the Bracers Guild at some point during Kuro. Anyways, yes, I plan to pay him a visit once things have calmed down on my end. He's done so much for us, I'd like to see him once more. Once more, they've fallen into a long conversation, although unintentionally. Finally, sometime after they had already switched, they finally hung up and ended their little girl's chat. That's cute. They talked through the night. The following day in Aramis High School main schoolhouse. During a lunch break, Ren decided to leave the classroom and begin down the stairs. However, she suddenly felt something close behind her and instinctively moved aside. It was a fellow student, a girl who came into view. She had across her face the same shocked and fearful expression that one wears when they feel themselves lose their balance and their feet begin to slip. She passed right where Ren had been, but her momentum continued to drag her down. Agnes! If no one had stopped her, she'd end up falling down the stairs. Ren immediately reached out and grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her towards her. Oh my god, they're just having a shoujo moment. Shoujo eye moment. The girl, who had just been tumbling, came to a stop, supported by Ren's hand, which was outstretched in a position not unlike that of a ballroom dancer's. A handful of nearby students saw these events unfold and couldn't help but to let out a sigh of admiration. Seeing the girl was still out of it, Ren called to her gently. Is everything alright? Are you uninjured? Suddenly realizing what had happened, the girl quickly stood upright and responded to Ren's display of sympathy, her face growing the slightest bit of red. That is so funny that they have like a shoujo eye moment. Yes, it seems I'm unscathed. You're bright from the next class over? You really saved me there. I can't thank you enough. It was nothing at all. That said, I get the feeling you were in a hurry at the top of the stairs. Is something the matter? The girl knitted her eyebrows and thought at the question. I wasn't really. That's not it. It just felt like someone had pushed me from behind. Really? No, I'm overthinking things. We probably just bumped into each other as we passed by. The fuck? Somebody's bullying. Someone's bullying Agnes? Is this even Agnes? Thinking Ren once more, the girl departed. However, Ren couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. Just a coincidence, huh? No, if I hadn't made it in time, she would have fallen down the stairs and been seriously injured. Though perhaps it's possible that I was their target from the beginning. If that's the case. It was hard to say that she had a solid ground for her suspicions, but she could certainly feel something was amiss at the time. She had grown used to the feeling of having a malicious gaze directed at her from afar. Okay, so I guess that wasn't Agnes. They would have mentioned it. It would take a much shorter time than she'd anticipated for her baseless conjecture to become the certain truth. The following day, Ren returned to the classroom from physical education with the classmates. However, as she began to prepare for her next class, she noticed something strange. It was, for a student, a rather dire situation. Glue had been smothered over the side of all of her books. Obviously, such an impairment made the books unable to be opened properly. This was a clear demonstration of intentional harassment. And on top of that, it was clear who the responsible party was. Why are they being so immature? She could hear Ronald Griffith, who she'd rejected just 2 days prior, standing and grinning with his entourage not far away. They all laughed at her as they watched her misfortune unfold. He's not even making an attempt to hide it. No, it's not even that. He wants me to know. It's a way to intimidate me. Of course, it was now certain that the previous day's incident at the stairway had been their doing as well. Their motives, likewise, were easy to understand. So long as Ren refused to join his faction, she, being such a standout student, was a threat to his election campaign. In order to secure his odds of victory, he'd attempt to embarrass her until she yielded to his demands. It didn't matter to him that Ren had no intention of even running in the election. Well, he's fucked because Ren's gonna start gunning for the election. Having taken a moment to examine the textbook, Ren took on a slightly doubtful expression. I should be able to fix it up with these, but that would take some time. So the bell rang and class began. Throughout class, Ren left the textbook on her desk but didn't make any further attempts to open it. Seeing as much, the teacher was displeased. She called on Ren to speak so as to make an example of her. "Miss Bright, please read the next paragraph." Ronald and his friends let out a derisive chuckle. Surely they were imagining the coming scene of the teacher harshly scolding her. However, reality didn't play out quite as they'd hoped. Without the slightest amount of panic in her expression, Ren began reading out loud, line for line, word for word, just as it was written in the textbook. Yet her textbook remained closed. There was no way she was looking at another student's. Holy shit. Wrecked. "Miss Bright, have you memorized the entire text?" Even the homeroom teacher was shocked. "Yes, I've been preparing for the text well in advance. Isn't such a diligence natural for a student of Aramis?" If I was that character in Spy X Family, I'd be like, "Ooh, elegance." Both the teacher and the other students couldn't help but gasp in both surprise and admiration at Ren's perfect response. Ronald and his cohorts, on the other hand, ground their teeth bitterly at this development. They're so fucked. Ren's clearly beyond their league. Why would they keep fucking with her? On the next day, as Ren was en route to school, as Ren passed through the front gate and was about to enter the school building with a crowd of students, she noticed a pungent odor drifting from above and looked up to find the source. Just as she did, part of the railing around the school building's roof broke off and began to fall down, right on top of her. Okay, this is straight up just like malice. Seeing this, the surrounding students all began to scream in terror. I can avoid it with ease, but the piece of railing that was crashing down at them was more than 2 arcs long. It would certainly end up injuring a number of the surrounding students. Assessing the situation, Ren reached for the combat ornament she kept hidden in her school bag. Oh, she used airstrike. With a short recitation of the art's name, a spear of wind appeared before Ren and it went flying upward. Smart girl. Airstrike has a very short cast time. Ren had toned down the strength of the orb art so that it was just enough to offset the railing's momentum without sending it flying. With a small hop, she was able to catch it with ease. Oh, she caught it. The stench. This really wasn't some random accident. It was the unmistakable smell of a plant-like monster's bodily fluids. Their fluids are capable of corroding metal as if the damage were natural, and thus could even be used as a dissolving agent in some situations. She would know. In other words, this was an intentional attack disguised as a natural occurrence. Given that Ren was the target, the culprit's objective was obvious. That same malicious glare targeted Ren from the shadows, likewise served to prove his theory. However, that glare wasn't the only attention she was receiving. Whoa, that was amazing. Hey, did you see that? Bright, how talented are you? While Ren was busy being lost in thought, a swell of cheers formed around her. Just like an artist, having completed her performance, Ren gave an elegant curtsy to her spectators. Her victory level up curtsy. The harassment didn't stop there, however. Ren continued to evade each onslaught with such grace, garnering more and more attention with each incident. The state of affairs carried on for several days until one day Ronald, fed up with how things were going, finally called Ren to behind the schoolhouse. He and his entourage were all present. He wore a frustrated expression, completely different from the polite and composed demeanor he'd expressed a few days prior. Where is the elegance? Where's the grace? You know this girl's like beyond you. Why would you keep harassing her? What is your problem? Is he that stupid? Anyways, let me give it to you straight. Rembrandt, you're in my way. He had no will to uphold any pretenses. His normal, gentlemanly demeanor having completely vanished. My, it's rather quite regrettable to hear that from my own classmate. Don't play dumb with me. I poured so much time and Mira into building up my influence in the school. And you think you can just stroll in here and show me up? Now, of all times, it's painfully obvious you're trying to get in the way of my ambitions. Ren kept her cool in the face of Ronald's obnoxious fury. I suppose you have only yourself to blame for that, she says. It was only because Ronald had tried to cause her so much grief that Ren had ended up standing out too much. It's like a Spy X Family situation. With this fact pointed out to him, Ronald collected his tongue in regret. That's beside the point. I won't tolerate your presence any longer. I'd like you to exit stage for a while. And what is that supposed to mean? Ren says. As if he'd finally regained the upper hand, Ronald smirked once more. Oh, nothing in particular. Just don't come to school on election day. That's all I want. And if I were to refuse? With a wave of Ronald's hand, his entourage circled around Ren. They were all well built, their menacing gazes like daggers carving into her. Unfortunately, I don't think that's refusing is really on the table. If you really wanted to, then well, I think we just have to make you stay home. As if to drive the point home, Ronald's friends all cracked their knuckles. My goodness, we're at school, aren't we? Is it really proper to do something like this? Ren spoke in an astonished manner, but Ronald took her to be panicking and spoke pleasantly. Now, just who would be snooping around behind the schoolhouse? Even if someone did so happen to see, I'm sure my father could use his connections to deal with them. Besides, I'm sure they'd much prefer to pretend they'd seen nothing. Everyone in this school knows how things stand. Except for you, apparently. Ren let out an instinctive sigh, seeing his obnoxious smirk. It seems this boy is in a little bit of discipline. Though I did promise Tita earlier that I wouldn't be too showy with it. Well, I suppose it's my only choice now. Let's just think of this as an opportune moment. Oblivious to what Ren was truly thinking, Ronald continued his speech. Now do as I say, Ren Bright. Ronald's friends began coming closer to Ren, ready to hold her down. I'll have to be careful not to go overboard, but I'll make sure you suffer just a tiny bit. If it'll get you to reflect on your actions, then I'm sure Estelle won't mind too much. It was just as Ren had determined her course of action that a voice called out, "Is it Agnes? Stop it, please." It was a young woman's voice calling from by the school building. Of course, the person they were yelling at wasn't Ren, but Ronald and his friends. Wait, aren't you? Ronald's frustration appeared once more. The girl had a twinge of fear in her voice, but she stood resolute regardless. Agnes! Agnes! I'm clapping. I'm fucking clapping. That's my girl right there. I just happened to be passing by, but I heard a bit of your conversation. This is wrong. Please stop and reconsider. The girl stepped toward Ronald as she spoke, apparently to get between him and Ren. Stepping out from the shadow of the schoolhouse, her hair gleamed softly in the afternoon sunlight. Right, anyways. Ren had seen this girl before. She was a first-year student who lived in this dorm room next to her. They would greet each other when passing in the hallway, but they weren't especially close. Ha! Ha! We know how it is. She seemed to be a quiet and reserved girl from a good family, so Ren was surprised by the strong will she displayed in trying to help her. Ren, you are talking at the next gen protagonist. Ronald was equally surprised. Clearly, he thought Ren was the only student who dared to stand against him. In spite of shock, he looked the blonde girl standing in his way up and down, giving a cruel smile. I see. So I'm wrong, am I? By your looks, you're what? A first year? Perhaps you're in need of a little lesson before Bright. Think a bit more carefully about what you think society deems right and wrong. Of Ronald's words, the thugs rushed to surround the blonde girl. The girl began slightly quaking in fear of the looming threat, but she stood her ground nonetheless. Knock it off at once, Ren demanded of them. I'll do what you want, so seize this immediately. And Miss Bryce? Bright? Perfect. The girl was surprised by Ren's concession, but Ronald gave a content smile. I won't come to school for a few days. Is that good enough? Miss Bright, please don't. Being an exchange student is tougher than I expected. It's been quite exhausting, so I could honestly use a break myself. Ren explained to the girl who'd come to help her, hoping to calm her down. Ronald, on the other hand, was ecstatic at his victory. So you finally learned your place, Ren Bright. Hahaha, works for me. If you just behave yourself for a few days, my job will become much easier. I'll have even overlooked the little first year's transgressions. Saying as much, Ronald turned to his entourage in high spirits. See you around, Bright. But the next time we meet, the school will already belong to me. Leaving the pair with those words, Ronald and his gang departed. The two remained behind the school building, the younger girl looking over Ren with concern. I'm doing fine, though I appreciate your consideration. Saying as much, Ren gave the girl a kind smile. Cute! And from that day on, they became friends. Wait, I thought Ren was student council president in Kuro. Maybe stuff happened. Anyways. A few days later, the whole student body gathered in the auditorium. It was finally time for the Aramis High School student election. Given Aramis's focus on student autonomy, the student council held a great deal of power. They were even in charge of organizing certain events, such as the academic festival, that had just been held in the capital and happened each spring. While they wielded great power over many operations, they were in turn held responsible and evaluated for their performance. Such evaluations even had value after graduation. It was for this reason that many students ran with high hopes for the prestigious position. That's what made this year such an anomaly. For some reason, rival candidates had dropped out one by one until only Ronald and his clique remained. Heh, does it not look good if I win by a vote of confidence? Ronald and his friends chuckled quietly as they waited the results. The other candidates didn't even attempt to campaign. It was safe to say that Ronald's victory was already secured. It was time for Ronald's campaign speech. He stood in a tall, gentlemanly manner, affecting his voice with the same proud style of speech that his father would use. The actual content was thought out, and well written on top of that. It was all around a solid performance. Until Ren. No, not yet. Every now and then a boast would slip out, but that was a little concern given that his opponents didn't even have proper speeches. Well then, everyone, please have a look at the screen. A few years prior, a large screen had been installed behind the podium Ronald was using. was often used for lectures or even for the occasional recreational movie screening. One could argue that the reason that the school had even had such a screen was because of Calvert's development of horrible films. Yep, we know about that. In past year, candidates had used the screen to provide visual aid to their speeches, displaying relevant pictures. This year, however, Ronald intended to take things a step further. Utilizing the screen, he displayed a promotional video. It wasn't one that seemed like it could be made by some independent student, but instead one that seemed to be made by some large film company. It must have cost a great deal of mira. Having been professionally made, it was nearly perfect. The election had practically already been won before Ronald even stepped on stage. With this video, there could no longer be any doubt. The video was worthy of the elite trajectory Ronald envisioned for himself. Believing as much with all his heart, Ronald pressed play. The video began with the heart-pounding opening music, after which Ronald's visage appeared on screen and began speaking. So how much do you want? Come on, lend me your support and you can get all the mirror you want. Huh? However, the video being projected was completely different from the one Ronald had prepared. Oh, he got fucked. Ren deep-faked his video. Instead, it was a recording of himself just a few days prior paying off a rival candidate. With Ronald shocked into inaction, the video advanced to the next scene. Now, if you don't want something bad to happen, just drop out of the collection, won't you? Or would you prefer a hospital bed to your dorm bed? Once again, he was shocked to see himself on screen, this time for when he threatened an opponent with violence. But now, Ronald understood what had happened. Someone had replaced the film he'd prepared. To nobody's surprise, there was an uproar among the students. Ronald scrambled around shouting, trying to cover it up. No, this is complete nonsense. Clearly there's something's wrong. Somebody's trying to slander me. As if waiting for those exact words, a girl's voice echoed from the auditorium's entrance. Ren's much for appearances. It's rather unfortunate, but what you see before you is the absolute truth. The voice was just as clear and confident as it was enchanting. A girl with flowing violet hair slowly advanced from the entrance toward the podium, speaking as she approached. This man is a fraud. This man is a fraud. Fake news, etc., etc. Bribing voters, threatening violence against your opponents, and finally bullying and attempting to injure other students. Ronald Griffith, your sins are laid bare. Before he knew it, the girl had come up to the podium and now stood face to face with him. All the students' eyes were glued to this scene, as if Ren was the dignified main protagonist finally making her entrance on stage. Ren's much for the flair. Ren, bright, why won't you stop getting in my way? Ronald let out a cry of muffled rage. Ren, on the other hand, making her debut in the school, following many days of absence, responded with grace. If anyone's getting in anyone else's way, I believe that would be you, Ronald. You shamelessly disgraced this momentous election with countless acts of misconduct. Saying this, Ren turned not to Ronald but to the students, gesturing for them to all watch his crimes unfold on screen. Sometimes the student would frown, at other points they'd put on a sympathetic expression. At some scenes, they'd go completely silent. In the end, they were all left with one collective emotion. Rage, all of it directed at Ronald. We've only been classmates for a short while, but it still pains me to say this to fellow students. But regardless of my own feelings, it must be said. Ronald Griffith, you are not fit to be student council. No, beyond that. You are not fit to have any place in the honorable and prestigious history of our great Aramis High School. Ren's speech was but the first in a barrage of anger and blame toward Ronald. Hell yeah, stop smearing blah blah blah. It wasn't just thanks to Ren's accusations. None of the students were oblivious to how Ronald conducted himself every day. Out of fear for his father's authority and connections, no one had been able to put a stop to him. Finally, all of that pent-up anger spilled forth. You know, we can do this in reality. Just saying. Anyways, And during a hail of jeers, Ronald looked over to his entourage for help, yet none of them would meet his gaze. In that moment, it struck Ronald that the castle he'd spent so long building for himself was made of sand. With his eyes filled with hatred and his heart filled with despair, Ronald rushed away from the podium. Everyone cheered at the sight of him fleeing, flustered and afraid, out of the auditorium. Wait, when's Van gonna show up? It wasn't until that evening that Ren, having stayed late to help deal with the mess caused by all the election day turmoil, finally left the school grounds. What an awkward sentence. Anyways, she walked part of the way back to her dormitory, but then took a detour down an unfamiliar road where she arrived at a quiet park. I assume here's fine? There's no one to get in our way, so you can come out. At Ren's words, Ronald, who Ren hadn't seen since his escape earlier that afternoon, appeared with about a dozen men backing him up. A bunch of men? The men weren't the same entourage of students that always followed Ronald around at school. These men all wore gaudy clothes and had vicious expressions. They clearly weren't in any polite line of work. Most likely they were some sort of low-tier organized crime group. I don't recall what the name was of this group, but Van and Ren went back and took care of him at some point in Korra. One of her Bond stories. Anyways, well, Griffith, you have quite a few shady friends, don't you? I suppose it's time to begin the party? Oh shit! The party. Watch out. Today's the last time you'll ever look at me with that damn smug expression, Ren, right? My aspirations to become an elite politician, my bright future, you've taken it all away from me. What the hell am I supposed to say to my father? I don't really know, Griffith. Would it be best if you cleaned up your own act before going to him? Hearing Ren's shaken tone, Ronald's entire body shook with rage as he shouted, I'll never forgive you, you hear me? I'm tired of keeping up appearances. You stupid dude! Don't call her that. I don't care what happens to you. I can clean it all up later. Do whatever the hell you want to her. Yeah, I'm not even gonna read that part. Why would you? I wouldn't call. I would never call. At Ronald's command, the men all started rushing in, but just a few moments later, they couldn't believe their own eyes. Ha! 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 Go crazy. Ronald couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Surely he'd seen it, but his brain couldn't just process it. The moment he'd issued his command, the petite girl in front of him suddenly brought out a massive golden sight, seemingly from out of nowhere. As if that wasn't strange enough, what followed after made it feel as if he'd been dreaming. Whoop. It was like a cat toying with a mouse that couldn't escape. Except the cat was the small girl with the sight, the mice a dozen grown men that were left scattered around. At first the men were confident as they moved in to surround her, but they quickly came to realize their insurmountable difference in ability when with a single motion, Ren's scythe cut down half of their friends in less than 10 seconds flat. Wrecked! Could hardly even be considered a fight. Wait, I just realized it's pretty funny that Hajimari just went full visual novel. It's not even a visual novel, it's more like a novel. The rat scrambled and ran in fear as the kitten chased them around with joy. At times she'd pretend to let them escape, allowing them a brief moment of relief before crushing it all underfoot by instantly catching up once more. She still got that little bit of Ren in her. You can't take the Ren out of Ren. They would repeat this process over and over and over until the mouse would get too exhausted to keep running and join the others fainted on the ground. One by one the men fell until it was only Ren and Ronald left standing. What the f... How did you... This isn't real. Ronald couldn't accept the reality before his own eyes. Ren, like a child who still wanted to play more, slowly approached him. Is she gonna start talking in third person? Those men were still too inexperienced. They were no fun to play with at all. Please stay calm. I haven't slaughtered them all quite yet. Wait, did he kill him? Ren looked away from the men, directing her attention to Ronald. Oh shit! Now then, Griffith, why don't we play together for a bit? Her words sent chills down Ronald's spine. In his eyes, Ren had become nothing more than a horrific monster wearing a girl's skin. She's no monster, she's Ren. Don't get anywhere near me. Daddy's a congressman, you know. If you do anything to me, don't think he'll ever forgive you. Hearing this, Ren looked down at Ronald with pity in her eyes and tossed it in my magazine. Here, why don't you read today's gossip column? Huh? Ronald had no clue what she meant, but the moment he looked at the front cover of the magazine, he turned deathly pale. The headline, Congressman Griffith, involved in massive bribery scandal, possible connections to criminal organizations, adorned the front cover in bold letters. Oh, I see. So I see what Ren did during her downtime. I think she enlisted Van's help in taking down the congressman. I guess that's what happened. I see, everything's coming together. Anyways, they put together a special report, gathering all manner of evidence. It would seem that CID has already decided on the results of their investigation. I wonder, would he still be in Congress by the end of the day tomorrow? My condolences. Ronald says. Ronald was so shocked that he couldn't even form words anymore, but Ren held no intention to just let him off now. Oh, get fucked. What's he gonna do? But let's not go on and on about your father. How about we have some fun together, just the two of us? Holding her scythe to the side, Ren approached Ronald with a sadistic grin. He tried to flee but ended up tripping on a small stone and falling over. As if beholding the slow but inevitable approach of the Grim Reaper, Ronald looked up at Ren with tears flowing from his eyes and snot running from his nose. Please engrave this memory into your soul. This is what happens when you mess with Ren. There you go, she started talking in third person. Ren raised the scythe above her head, ready to swing it down, but following the moment where Ronald's life flashed before his eyes, he was shocked at what he heard. My, that just won't do. It seems I'll let that old habit of mine slip out. Ren covered her mouth with one hand, blushing ever so slightly. It seems that in her excitement she'd begun acting as she did when she was a child. Oh shit, Ren mode. That wasn't befitting. This wasn't befitting of a young lady. By the time Ren calmed herself down, Ronald had already passed out. Seems we're finished here. As she left the park, she heard the voice of a calm young man. There you go, Van! Van! Yeah, more or less. Ren looked over to where the response had come from. Leaning against a tree was a Tat? It seems he'd been watching everything in the park unfold. Oh, Dingo. Hey, Dingo. What's that? The man glanced into the park, clearly impressed. Nice work. Oh, which one? Both, of course. Your combat proficiency as the Angel of Slaughter and your hacking skills as Kitty. They're both pretty impressive. Not to mention that it's crazy how easily you were able to uncover the wrong... Oh, right, because she threw... Right. Because she threw him a gossip magazine, and Dingo works for a gossip magazine. Anyways, not to mention it's crazy how easily you were able to uncover the wrongdoings of a big-name congressman like that. However, Ren didn't boast over her own talents. That's just because the Orwell network is still so insecure. Perhaps it can't be helped since it's just now beginning to experience popular use, but governments and megacorporations really should be more careful. Make it sound like you have experience with their security. Tee-hee, I wonder. Ren faced back towards the young man with a smile. Though I must say I'm impressed with you. You managed to pin down the perfect evidence and then write such a tremendous article in such a short time. I'm pleased that Miss Lin decided to introduce us. Miss Lin. Oh, Grace. Grace Lin. Well, I'm a pro reporter, aren't I? That's just my job. This young name's man was Dingo Brad, and he worked as a writer for a gossip magazine. He was a talented journalist who was willing to get mixed with all sorts of dangerous situations in order to find a good scoop. On top of that, his information network is top-notch. Meeting through the mutual friend Grace, Ren and Dingo had struck a deal a few days earlier. He'd worked to collect evidence on Ronald's crimes at school, while Ren had put her hacking skills to use collecting evidence on his father's crimes as a politician. Oh, okay. Thanks to the excellent results of their partners' snooping, both parties were able to achieve the outcome they were looking for. Did you get help from some friends? Did get help from some friends though. They all whined like, "Buh, it's such a pain to dig up dirt on some congressman's lazy son." Buh, but in the end, the info they grabbed paid off. All I suppose is to be expected of a journalist to have so many friends to call on, Ren says. Finally explained the feeling she'd had that someone was moving in the shadows besides Ringo while Ren had been resting. Thinking about her hunch, she continued the conversation. At any rate, it seems that you had managed to get the article into the magazine without any interference. Well, Congressman Griffith ain't exactly the current administration's favorite dude. He probably let me put the story out since it doesn't get in the way of the president's faction and it makes the CID look like they're doing something good for once. I see. If that old Taito user is in charge of the case, then everything should be fine. Wait, what? Who? Well, I suppose I'm a bit discontent with if that old Taito user, Kalika. I suppose I'm a bit discontent with the fact that she was already just using me indirectly, but I'll allow it to pass this time. After this, Dingo raised a question. Gotta say, little miss, I'm still a bit stumped by what exactly you wanted out of this whole thing. Were you really that interested in that boy? They both cast a sidelong glance at Ronald, still lying unconscious in the park. Ren, however, simply shrugged. No, not really. In truth, I hadn't intended for things to come this far. I was going to teach him a lesson without getting directly involved, but at that moment, Ren remembered the younger girl who'd run to her aid. If that boy had become a student council president, it would have been terrible for my cute little underclassman. Ren's here to find love. She said as much with a refined smile. Just as Ren had predicted, the Congressman Griffith resigned on suspicions of fraud. Ronald likewise dropped out of Aramis of his own accord. His factions that had once done as they pleased throughout the school naturally dissipated, and Aramis High School was at peace once more. However, one thing didn't go quite as Ren had expected. She's now the student council president. Here's this paperwork for next month's budget. A young blonde-haired girl, the new general affairs manager, handed the stack of papers over to the newly elected student body president of Aramis High School, Ren Bright. She skimmed over the documents. On the day of their election, most of the candidates dropped out following Ronald's flight from the auditorium. Regardless, the vote was held, but over 70% of the votes were deemed invalid. That was because each of them had written in the name of a candidate who wasn't even in the running. The school tried to avoid interfering with student affairs due to their academic philosophy of student freedom, but now they feared a massive outcry of displeasure given their failure to deal with Ronald. The teachers, searching for a way to appease the student body, swiftly moved to hold negotiations with Ren. With all of their urging, she ultimately had no choice but to accept the role. The student council was easy enough for Ren to manage, though it was a big departure from her initial plans of remaining graceful but yet humble and avoiding to stand out. Well, there's nothing that I can do to help it. I heard from Tita that he'd somehow ended up as the student council president at the Thor's branch campus. Who? Wonder if he felt the same. Who? What's done is done. I may as well put this position to good use. Cute. That's Agnes! She doesn't even have a face right now. That's so funny. Warm sunlight filtered into the student council room as the blonde-haired girl and her two friends struggled to figure out all sorts of unfamiliar tasks. Ren sat there listening to their occasional complaints and friendly small talk, thinking to herself, constant innovations and fears in the world of technology, future movements of the society, something brewing that would soon develop the entire nation of Calvard. There was no short of worries to be had. For now, maybe it wouldn't be so bad to just sit by and enjoy our school life. Hee hee, well done, everyone. Well then, everyone, let's wrap up today's work quickly so we can go and enjoy some tea. The spring breeze had already passed, yet summer's warm days had not yet arrived either. It was a bright, ordinary afternoon. Wait, Van didn't even show up. Is he in the other story? And Van didn't even show up. That was cute though. That was like that was just like a special short book made just for Ren. It's pretty funny though. Okay, it's time for me to sleep. I'll try to do some more tomorrow, maybe. If the other thing in the extra story is also a it's also a novel that I'll read it out tomorrow too, kind of like an audiobook, and see how that goes. Well, I don't have much time because I'm gonna have to fly out on Thursday. I'm going on vacation. Anyway, I have to sleep now, so have a good night.